Hello, everybody. This is Eric. Um, we're going to be talking about getting a good night's rest. How does this relate to anxiety? Having good sleep is a big part of anxiety reduction. I will say that in my own life, where I've had more anxiety, where I've been adrenalized, panic attacks, overthinking, the cingulate gyrus part of the brain where I'm overthinking. It's the first thing I can look at is, was I sleeping a good level of sleep? Good night's rest is important. And I'm seeing more and more and more of that. I'm saying a lot of the same things over and over. And I thought, let's put this into a video format. So let's jump in. So, how many of us don't struggle with sleep at all? It's just like a non-issue. We sleep, we get to sleep easily, and we stay asleep. So there's two things to consider: getting to sleep and then staying asleep. And we'll talk about that both just in behavior as well as EEG information. Why I entitled this Getting a Good Night's Rest is because it's an old fashioned phrase. It's something that people did in the old days. They focused on a good night's sleep, a good night's rest. Today, I'm not sure that people think in terms of that. I'm not sure. I think they just hope that they get to sleep and then call that good. But I'm talking about getting into a good night sleep. And what promotes that? Well, one thing is it's a habit. So it's not something you can just get a really good night's sleep and then maybe not have good sleep for a while. I mean, that happens, but really, once you get used to a good night's sleep, your body does it automatically. Those of us who don't have any problems with it, there's nothing to do. They just go to bed. But chances are they're doing some healthy habits that they're not aware of. And then pretty soon your body knows to sleep automatically. I would say sleep's really important. Hormones are related to this, body tissues being repaired, brain chemicals being actually the brain. If you're under a lot of stress, cortisol washes over your brain cells at night and you will wake up with amnesia. You just really won't have the brain function that if you're getting good night's sleep. So sleep is really important. Um, the body to repair itself has to be in that paralysis sleep. Okay. It makes sense. If there's a factory and someone needs to repair machinery at a factory or clean, the machinery needs to not be working at the same time. So I think there's many reasons why we need sleep and something we should protect. So I'll talk first about what promotes good night's sleep, and then we'll talk about insomnia in the second half. I want to make this a little bit of a shorter video too and not drag things out. So, sleep habit, like having a habit, is what works. So, going to bed the same time every night. Okay, so if the best sleep for you is 10:30 to 7:30, that would be approximately 8 hours, I believe, if I do, or 9 hours. That may be 9 hours of sleep. 10:30 to 6:30. I still have to count on my fingers, but you can do the math. 6 hours is probably not the best as 7 to 8, but there are people that swear that they're fine with 6 hours. What I have heard from doctors is that the sleep you get before midnight is really vital. If you sleep, from 10 to 6, that's 8 hours. you will do well, because 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you get 2 hours of that pre-midnight sleep. I've heard another doctor talk about the golden hours being 10 to 2. Okay. So imagine this: if you go to bed at midnight, you're getting half of the golden hours. But say like you go to bed at 2, it's like you're not going to feel good the next day. You could probably try to sleep till 8 or 9 or 10. You're just still not going to sleep as well and feel as refreshed as had you gone to sleep, from 10 to 2 and longer. Um, there is a researcher in hormone therapy. It was hormone replacement with women, and she wrote a book called Lights Out. Her whole premise, and I think she's pretty brilliant in this, is she says that it started with a study they were doing, I think, in California, Southern California, and measuring hormones and things with women. And they found out that in the middle of this study, they had a brownout, meaning they didn't have any electricity. So the brownout actually affected the results of the whole study. Turns out people did really, really well during brownout. Hormones were so different. Why? Because they went to bed when there was no lights. Well, what are you going to do? You're just going to go to bed. And they woke up with the sun and went to bed with the night. That caused her to really research that, and it's in the book Lights Out. I don't remember her name, but I'll post it in the description if you're interested. And so it really had an impression on me that electric lights, is kind of a relatively new invention, really, considering that maybe 300 years ago it was candles. Maybe 200 years ago it was candles. Maybe 150 years it was electricity, maybe. So now we have lights on all the time. We have blue light that's on all the time. Our cell phones, our computer screens, TV sets. So here's how blue light affects us. Blue light in the morning when you wake up, you wouldn't know it because your brain self-corrects for lighting. But if you had an old-fashioned camera, took pictures of morning sunsets, or even rooms like this, you would see things just as they really are. And this would be extremely bluish or greenish. A tungsten, we'll move things here. A tungsten, that lamp would probably be really orangish. Okay, very orange. So what you'll notice is on the spectrum, the way things are is in the morning, a sunrise is quite blue. At night, a sunset is quite red. Well, our eyeballs have on them receptors for blue light. Those blue receptors wake us up. And in the absence of those blue receptors, melatonin is manufactured, goes through the pineal gland, and we start getting sleepy. In fact, I could just demonstrate that now, since we're talking about light. Okay, see, it changes the quality, and I like this, actually. I think I'll leave this way. So I will say the last 15 years, I've had people come in thinking they have bipolar disorder. They can't sleep. It's horrible. And it really is from their blue light. I will say not a lot of people take it so seriously. I'm not sure what can be done, but those that have notice a tremendous difference, just tremendous difference, if they're not looking at a blue screen. There's adjustments for your cell phones and laptops. There's blue blocking glasses. But if you turned off devices at a certain time, just notice how sleep gets better. Let alone video games, I should say. I work with people that have video games all the way up till a half an hour before they go to bed. They're just not going to sleep well. It just, and what else? Well, reduce eating before bed. Again, in ancient times, or not so ancient, people would have ate dinner and then they wouldn't have eaten anything. They would have just gone to bed. Maybe a glass of milk. Maybe in writings you'd hear someone having a before bed snack, but people just knew that they shouldn't eat before bed. I've heard as much as 4 hours before going to bed. A doctor, I think his name is Hiromi Shinya, who wrote The Enzyme Factor, talks about this. He believes that um, most apnea is really just an esophageal adjustment after a person's eaten, and we'd all be better if we just went to bed on an empty stomach. I've I've experienced this myself, and I notice a difference. I sleep so much better if I sleep kind of hungry. Now, there's some people that really believe, and doctors have said this, that you got to make sure you have enough blood sugar levels and all that. I smile, but they seem to think that if you eat a little bit of carbohydrate before bed, you'll sleep better. Not so sure about that. Like, are we this do? But it's something to experiment with. When you'll find that you'll experiment, and if you can do this, you'll find that you'll sleep really well. Then you wake up really hungry. You can't wait to eat breakfast. Then when you eat breakfast, it feels like your adrenaline system's working the right way, so that then you're just hungry at lunch. And then at dinner you eat, and then you're not hungry, because I had my adrenal glands and my circadian rhythms just off. I remember this. This is fascinating. I would wake up not that hungry, so I wouldn't eat that much. And then lunchtime, I was hungry. Then I would eat again at 6 o'clock for dinner. And then I ate another dinner, like at 9. I smile because I'm embarrassed, but that's kind of what it was. My adrenals were off, and your adrenaline system would have a natural rise from 7 to 9 in the morning and from 1 to 3. Okay. After about 3 o'clock, it's going to taper off. So my adrenal system diurnal rhythm was off. It's almost as if my breakfast was at lunchtime and my lunch was at dinner, and then I ate another dinner. And was I sleepy? Not at all. I would get a second wind. It's because of that adrenaline factor. Then, of course, I slept on a full stomach, and then it really didn't work so well. So I tried a tincture, an herbal formula from my naturopathic physician. And it's funny, it's an important part of the story. So I took it whenever he asked me how I was doing. I said, well, I don't know. He says, now, are you taking it from 7 to 9 in the morning, or from 1 to 3 in the afternoon? It's like, well, maybe, I mean, I'm a busy guy. Turns out, he says, no, we're trying to help jumpstart your adrenaline to work during those times. Once I did that, it was like fabulous. Like, I think I even lost weight. I just was not hungry at the evening. I just wasn't hungry. And was I tired at about 10 o'clock? I was. And then I would sleep so wonderfully. And then as a kid, it was like I was a kid. Then I'd wake up and I was hungry. It was like that good hunger, like I could eat like a wholesome breakfast. And then it was just really good. And so it's really important to look at the big picture in all this. We have a comment here with Kervin. I fall asleep fairly well. I do, however, often wake at 2 and 3 a.m. Difficult to go back to sleep. sometimes awake with frustration about situations, stressful situations. I love that. If that's okay to do. I just learned how to do that. We'll talk about that, but we'll also talk about it from a rhythm point of view. Notice how a lot of people wake from 2 or 3 or 4. They don't wake at 1. It's because of those golden hours. Okay. And it has to do with stages of sleep. And so we'll talk about that specifically. Let's talk about the bedroom. So the bedroom should be dark. It should be quiet. It should have, in my opinion, less electrical things in it. This is just my personal experience, but when I'm at a camping or a monastery or Montana or someplace where it's just very peaceful and quiet, not a lot of electrical things going on, I just sleep better. I just do. And so I put my devices outside in another room. I try to not have electric cords right under my bed. I try to have not the clock radio, just right there. I just feel like less is better. So yes, if the alarm goes off, and I'll talk about that, I hardly ever have to use the alarm. I will get up and walk across the room to turn the alarm off. I might as well talk about this. So what's strange is I can wake up at 7:15, 7:17, 7:24. It seems to be the perfect waking time. So if we go back to circadian rhythms and the idea of a habit, your body will want to have a certain rhythm. And so my perfect rhythm is, I think, 10:30 to 7:15-ish, 7:20, something there. It's really precise. I can always pretty much wake up at that time, even with no alarms, etc. So fast forward, I did a 23andMe. What's odd is in that genetic profile and maybe people's responses, they said my perfect waking time would be like 7:24, and I thought that was odd. But that is me. Another strange thing about me and sleep is that if I have something important to do, like a meeting, say like a 12-step meeting or a prayer thing or a church service or something, what's odd is I'll just pray a prayer and say, God, wake me up. If it's, especially if I'm on waffling, should I go? Should I not go? Should I go? Should I, even if I'm feeling under the weather, should I use that extra sleep? I will be woken up. It's like the most simple prayer to just say, I'll wake up, and I'm awake. And sure enough, it's right before the meeting with no alarm, no nothing. I'm not saying this could work for anybody, but I would pray about it. I think that there's some value to that. And if I slept in, then I figured that I needed the extra sleep. Okay. Back to bedroom. What you don't want in your bed are books and anything else. They say don't do anything else other than sleep in your bed, and a few other things maybe with your loved one. But other than that, if you read in bed, if you watch TV in bed, if you use TV to fall asleep, it's not the best thing, because you're just associating those activities with the mattress. And it does work better to do all those fun things if you want to do it in a recliner chair somewhere else, but not in the bedroom if you want to have good sleep. And it works, because when you lay down on that bed, you will fall asleep. It's just operant conditioning. You see it, you'll fall asleep. And working with people that have had sleep problems for years, I can tell you that they do a lot of these things and that promote not good sleep. And once they start to change things, it changes things for them. It takes time. We're talking habits here. So this is not an instant fix. Okay. Notice on this list, I don't have taking any sleep aids or anything to get good sleep. Okay. So let's talk about insomnia. For some reason, it's weird. As a kid, I had insomnia. I just could not sleep, and I had an overactive mind. In EEG talk, it was too much alpha wave. I was thinking, 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 and thinking, and more thinking. Didn't really know how to tell my brain how to shut off. And then on top of it, let's add worry or negative thinking. Okay. So you're not going to sleep with that kind of mind. Um, so I'm a little bit all over the place, please forgive me, but we're going to talk about medications. Doctors will try to help people sleep with sleeping aids. I can authoritatively, definitively tell you that sleep aids will not work in terms of ultimate help for insomnia. In fact, they're part of the problem. And I get this 30 years ago, I took a class from Dr. Nicholas Hall. He was a psychoneuroimmunologist. And he just said, look, there is no medicine that's going to give you the quality of sleep you need. And rather than deal with the issues that are causing poor sleep, taking a sleeping pill is like forcing you to sleep, just like a lot of things that the medical community sometimes can do. And I like the medical community. I think we need them. But one of the flaws in it is they seem to use force for some things just to make something go away, rather than ask the question of what's causing the problem to begin with. Okay. So now I'm big on what's causing the lack of sleep. Is it some of the habits? Is it light in the room? Is it too noisy? Um, these kind of things. But I'd say the number one thing is that when we're anxious, when we're going through stressful situations, our body is designed to hold on to adrenaline to keep us sleeping in a lighter state. Okay. So let's flip back to why we need a predictable bedtime and a predictable waking time. So my perfect sleep would be in like 10:30, 11 to 7, 7:30. If it's altered more than a half an hour on either side of that, it throws my rhythm off. So if I went to bed as early as 10, I won't sleep that well. But it's more sleep, you say. Yeah, no, I won't sleep that well. Especially I'd be laying awake waiting. And if I got up at 6, actually 6 isn't terrible, but 6:30 is fine. 7 is fine, 7:30. So you have a half an hour leeway on either side that you can keep it to. But I can guarantee you, if you alter it sleeping later or earlier, you're going to have sleep problems and you're probably going to have anxiety and depression. The people that are not prone to anxiety and depression have a regular sleep pattern. They're just very regular people. It's predictable. Their body knows when it's time to sleep. So think about it. There's a few examples we can quickly point to. Teenagers will now get to stay up later on Friday, Saturday nights. They stay up way late, then sleep in. By Sunday night, they're depressed, thinking of going back to school. Monday, for most of us, we don't feel as good as Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Why is that? Because we probably altered our sleep pattern over the weekend. We may have slept later or a little bit earlier or just a change. If we never change it, we'll just have a better sleep pattern. That's why we're a little bit down on Monday. And there's maybe other factors, but it's interesting. If you get into the right sleep pattern, and the first stages of sleep have more delta, the deepest, hardest, dreamless sleep. Delta is where it's thought that serotonin could be reabsorbed in a factor there. If you don't sleep really well and you're staying in a light state of sleep, and even waking up in the middle of the night, you're not dipping into delta. If you don't dip into delta, you're not getting serotonin, and then you don't feel good the next day. We see this with kids, sleepovers. They're not usually happy after a sleepover. We see this with elderly. Elderly sleep less and less. And sometimes they sleep more and more, and they don't seem to be happier for it. Postpartum mothers or parents with small children that are waking up every 2 hours. We see that they're not getting the rest they need, and so they get really depressed. I'm not saying it's the only factor, but I think it's fascinating. Depression seems to be related to lack of brain cell growth. So that's why not getting good sleep or not getting exercise to get the brain flow, the blood flow to the brain to grow brain cells, being stuck doing the same thing over and over is going to get us depressed. So things that promote brain cell growth, memory loss is one of the first signs of sleep deprivation. When we get lack of sleep, our body thinks, oh no, he must be attacked. And so therefore, I'm going to change his metabolism so that everything he eats, I'm being extreme, will have a higher fat storage component. And in that fat, around the middle here, is going to be stored with cortisol, which gives me the more adrenaline I need. So it's not adrenaline, but it's cortisol, adrenal cortisol. So the cycle then continues. So then the more overweight or the more we have this adipose fat, the more adrenalized we are, the more we can't sleep. And if we do sleep, it's such a light state of sleep. And then the more we can't sleep, the more we get into this vicious cycle and we don't feel good. Okay. So how do we break up the cycle? By the way, going back to healthy sleep, exercises, I think people that exercise just naturally have good, healthy sleep. So I would say get the same pattern. Just try to go to bed at the same time. People that go, I just can't sleep. And I would say in the last year, I've had people just not sleep all night. They go to bed at like when the sun's coming up is what I was told. It's like, no, that's not going to help. So here's the thing. Your body will sleep. If you worry about it, it'll make it worse. So get yourself up is the first stage. Get yourself a normal waking time every day. Eventually, you'll start to fall asleep. Okay. There are some things that you can do to help a little bit. Herbal teas aren't a bad idea. I like probably about 4 brands. Tension Tamer is really pretty good. In fact, I'm going to go show you the box here. Having kind of a nighttime ritual is not a bad idea, especially with kids, but like this is Tension Tamer. This works really, really well. I had a gentleman who struggled with quadriplegia, and there was a lot of issues he struggled with, but he couldn't settle his mind down because a lot of us would move around and animate to do that. And he was just kind of locked in this, and he would come in and want 2 of these. What's funny about the Celestial Seasoning people is they did make a double strength at one time, but I guess it didn't sell. But yeah, this is pretty powerful and it tastes good. It really does. I wish they were individually wrapped, but it is what it is. And do they smell good? They smell like mint. Oh my gosh. Yeah, mint and lemon. and it has chamomile. Chamomile, I'm growing to really appreciate chamomile again. Chamomile is a nervine. It's a fancy word to describe that it helps settle the nerves. And it's more than just, I realized I was talking too fast to get all this in. A nervine calms the nerves. Does it taste really good? It tastes like nothing. There's Egyptian chamomile. And it may be a little bit better. It's fun to try to mix your own. I can throw chamomile into a lot of other herbal teas. There's another blend, and it'll be a mystery blend. It's something called Evening and Missoula. It's a town. It's a city in Montana, which that combination, that blend, tastes really pretty good. It's not what I would call a sleepy tea, but it could actually help. Then there's obviously Sleepy Time. They're all going to have the same kind of products. But do I recommend them? Probably yes. If someone needs to do something to try to help promote good sleep, experiment. And you'll find that it probably does give you a better sleep. So back to Nicholas Hall, he said the only thing that he knew to help someone who had insomnia was a warm bath. A warm bath can trigger the nervous system to try to slow down. But if you're in the bath too long, it'll wake you up. And you don't have to worry about it being in too slow or too short, but too long, it could actually perk you up. But when I was having anxiety attacks, I would just draw two things I would do. One is go on a walk, just burn that adrenaline off. I knew I was safe. I just needed to burn it off. Or draw a bath of warm water, which at first you feel like I have all this energy, but sometimes the type of anxiety one's experiencing, you just feel better just getting warm, especially if you're on the cold side. Both will promote good sleep, even just going on a walk if you feel a little bit too energized. Okay. Essential oils in the water is really nice as well. A shower works as well. But yeah. If you're tossing and turning in bed, get up out of bed. Don't stay there. So if it's 2 or 3 in the morning and you're thinking, and more thinking, get up. Now, here's the thing. I don't struggle with this anymore. It's funny. As a kid, I was an insomniac, but now I don't. I just don't. My issue would be trying to get more sleep. But if I go to bed, I don't lay there and toss and turn. But say like I did wake up in the middle of the night, I will lay there. Well, on this principle, I would get up out of bed and then realize I'm waking myself up. So I now will allow myself to be there 5 to 10 minutes. And if I'm not asleep, then I get up. And for me, I considered extra prayer time. I go into what we call the prayer room and just pray, and I'm fine. There's no panic. Oh no, I'm not sleeping. Oh no, catastrophizing, which makes it all worse. Yeah, if I did that, it's like, oh no, how am I going to do this? I have to speak the next day or all that. That would just add a snowball. So I just wake up, and someone told me maybe this is bonus time, and I would pray. And there's certain prayers we've talked about and certain things I can read. I'd say within 20 minutes, I'm tired again. And then I go to sleep and I sleep really well, really, really well. So why do we wake up in the middle of the night? And I'd say I've learned this principle probably in the last 5 years. But here's what I really, really believe. There's two things. One is, and this is more on the spiritual side, demonic activity is more, there's just more, well, I'll say there's more demonic activity at night than during the day. If one looks at historical Christianity or writings, you'll see that that's always been the case. That's why a lot of people pray at night. That's why it talks about, boy, my memory. Something comes at night, but there's joy in the morning. If you look at it, a lot of us have troublesome thoughts at night. We just are troubled and worried and alone, and there's just darker issues. In the morning, things get better. But so there's that. And then if we look at things from an unconscious mind, the unconscious mind is more unconscious when we're asleep. So, of course, when there's struggles and worries and frustrations and all that can come out during nightmare activity. Nightmares aren't good for us. They just aren't. And that's troubled sleep. From an EEG point of view, people start off with nightmares, and it's like a storm in the brain electrically. And what's fascinating about it is correlated with storms during the day. So let's take a little kid who's having well, we call them nightmares, but he's like a nightmare to live with. He's crying, he's hysterical, he will have tantrums. In the classroom, he gets up, he's running and hiding in the corner, covering his head. The teacher's beside herself. Principal needs to come help. And there's no consoling him. He's either been traumatized or just something's really off. So he comes to me for help. And if we're doing neurofeedback, which is EEG biofeedback of the brain, invariably he's going to have nightmares. They go, yep, he has nightmares, he has night terrors, etc. When we start doing the training, the nightmares go away first. And then eventually the daymares go away. So it really taught me to realize that when we have nightmares, it's probably because during the day we're having troubles that are unresolved. So getting a good night's sleep, it's really important to really focus on the day, having a great day, having a peaceful day, resolving things during the day. If you take care of things during the day, night will get better. That's in our control. And boy, I've changed a lot because I didn't realize that I was really not that holistic with this. That, okay, right before bedtime, now it's bedtime. Now let's do these things like to try to make you fall asleep. But that may not actually be the cause. Like, is the cause lack of herbal teas? Is the cause really not having warm baths? Probably no. The cause are probably troubled events, living a not peaceful lifestyle, too much caffeine or drugs, or, oh, I should say alcohol in and of itself for a number of people will cause you to not sleep through the night. It's one of the questions on our EEG assessment. Does alcohol, 1 to 2 glasses, make you feel kind of uncomfortable? And do you notice it's hard to stay asleep after you've had alcohol? And if the answer is yes, you have the type of brain that doesn't work so well with alcohol. There's a whole other topic we could do. We won't go into that. What's fascinating is why are doctors treating narcolepsy, which is this sleep disorder with amphetamines with uppers. The thinking, I think, is to keep people up during the day. And if people are up during the day, they'll sleep better at night. So when we do beta training, which is that fast, pay attention brainwave when people are hooked up to the wires, when they see their brain in action, they're up and they feel so alive and so awake during the day that then about 10 o'clock, they feel like falling asleep. So be awake during the day, do things that are promote being awake, and then you'll fall asleep at night. Again, the vicious cycle is the opposite. When you don't sleep well at night, then you're tired all day long. When you're tired all day long, the weirdest thing is you feel like you could sleep all day long, and then at night you wake up and you can't sleep. Yeah, so what can you do? Try to wear yourself out during the day with exercise. Okay. So essential oils. I include this separate from herbal teas because some essential oils really can put you to sleep pretty powerfully. I don't have the... I'll try to link this. I mentioned Swiss Aromatics, but there is something called Deep Sleep Magic. It's their combination of essential oils. For me, this puts me out. I mean, and it's a little roll on, and you can imagine what nice essential oils are there. I think there's chamomile in there. But what is the most prominent scent is hops. I smell like a beer factory. It's kind of sour. But do I sleep well? Absolutely. So I recommend that. Yeah, I'll try to be faithful to put a link in the description. I'm not selling it or promoting it. I do like their products. They're very reasonably priced and high quality. I mean, the quality is really good. And they're scientists there, located in San Francisco area. Why would I do that if I have pretty good sleep? Because I like to make myself, notice the words, make myself sleep a little bit better. But the reality is I don't use it all the time. But it's nice to have. Prayer time. I believe that part of my routine is having a prayer time to take all the burdens to God, to put everything in His hands, and my prayers are read, so a lot of them, I have prayers for sleep particularly, and then prayers upon awakening. It tells my body that it's time now to not think about those things. In fact, I think it was a few nights ago, I was having a conversation with myself that says, no, it's not time to think about this or this or this. We are going to bed. Because the things in this world are troubling, which we've talked about last time. I'm going to look up a verse at the same time. The Lord builds the house. We'll come to this here. Unless the Lord... Okay, so yeah, telling myself that it's not time for anything else, it's time for sleep. So you probably have just joined me on Bible Hub here, but let's look up the verse here. Um, this is Psalm 127, and this is an important one. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he gives his beloved sleep. And we'll focus on that. So what's interesting is there's a cooperating with God here. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Well, wait a minute. Is the house supernaturally being built by itself? No, because it says they labor in vain who build it. So what we mean is God has to be helping us with this endeavor. Unless the Lord guards the city. Some things that have been happening in cities around America makes you think we do need guards and security systems. Now they're electronic, but it says the watchman stays awake in vain. So we can guard everything in our life to try to make ourselves safe. But unless God's helping guard the city, it's vanity, it's emptiness. It says it's vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late. Okay, so that's burning the candle on both ends. To eat the bread of sorrows. That sounds like YouTube to me. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like YouTube. And I ate the bread of sorrows. For so he gives his beloved sleep. So going to something that's basic is that the way I see it is God loves me. He has done everything he can to try to keep me connected to him, and I just have to cooperate with him. If I'm not sleeping well, there's probably things that I'm holding on to or things I'm scared of, or I'm trying to make myself sleep, which is not the best way to sleep. You won't sleep that way. And again, some of the medical things are kind of like hammers. Like it really blew my mind to realize the CPAP machine, which I will confess I've been using for about 10 plus years, is forcing air down my throat to make sure I have enough air. Well, maybe I need to look at the cause. The cause could be allergies or too much weight, or maybe it's one of those things that it's more natural. And I'm just artificially keeping myself alive. And I'm not a doctor here. You'd have to sort it out for yourself. But I'm rethinking about things now instead of forcing myself. Maybe I just need to eat less, around dinner time. Around sleep time. So that's something to consider here. We have a comment. Oh, yeah, from John. Hi, John. Good to see you there. So sleep is so essential. Without it, hormones are not going to be going the right direction. Our thought processes aren't going to be thinking the right direction. We won't have the energy we need. In fact, diet and exercise are really popular. Dozens of YouTube channels about getting the right exercise, the right diet. I wonder, though, if we added sleep to that, if things wouldn't get better. So this idea of if I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I just add it as prayer time. I just go to prayer. But I also read something good. I just read something good, nothing inflammatory, nothing dangerous, something good, and I will sleep really well. And then I want to conclude with this is a pattern. So you could do all this stuff for 1 week and go, well, I didn't notice any difference. Yeah, it's like planting a field. It takes a while for you to reap a harvest. I will tell you this, none of these things are I mean, if you do these things, you're going to get better sleep. I could add a few things that look like real strong treatment. One is neurofeedback will help people sleep really well. That's one of the things we see across the board. People go, I can't believe the sleep. People who struggle with opiates, if you've ever taken an opiate, abused it, and got into that pattern, it can take 20 years to get back to normal. EEG sleep pattern wise. With neurofeedback, you can get your sleep back to normal within about 30, not 30, but 3 months. Yeah, it's astounding. And they go, I feel so much better than just, they have like a 77 to 80% success rate if you use neurofeedback plus 12 steps for most addictions. Works really well because it calms the system down. And then once you get into a good habit, you want to protect that habit. I had a friend, this was in college, when it was 10 o'clock, he got up, says, love you all, but I'm going to bed. And he just started turning off lights. It was the strangest way to say goodbye. But we all just got up and left. And of course, we were young. Hey, let's go do this and this and this. Well, by the way, who gets depressed a lot? College students. Could it be from lack of sleep? Okay. So sleep is really important. Any questions out there? If you have comments on things that have really helped you with sleep, go ahead and post them. I will talk a little bit about bipolar. Bipolar disorder is a little bit different than just sleep problems, but it's characterized by lack of sleep. And if you don't sleep for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 days, you're going to hallucinate. You're going to have some serious problems, and then you're running on adrenaline. Does neurofeedback work for bipolar? It does. It works really well. I've had people that have had 10 to 12 days without batting an eye, scare the family to death, rapid speech, bizarre delusional ideas, paranoia, and without any medicine, they come to neurofeedback or find a neurofeedback provider. Do not linear type of neurofeedback. It's a specific type of neurofeedback. It takes that brainstorm and teaches the brain not to have these storms throughout the day and night. They sleep through the night. It's usually like for 12 days, like 4 hours straight, which then it's encouraging. Then the very next day they do it again, and the next until they're doing 67. And they may do about 20 to 30 or 40 sessions, but it's all without medication. Neurofeedback works in that it's teaching the brain how to do something. So it's more permanent. It'd be like riding a bicycle. At first, you're very wobbly, but then I smile because I have a joke to share. Wobbly, and once you start to do it, you know how to ride a bicycle, and then it's virtually impossible to unlearn that. I've been talking pretty fast. Why to get all this information in an hour? And with now speeds, if you go, wow, Eric, you're talking way too fast, you can always just, instead of a notification, just click on the speed and just go slower. You can speed videos up on YouTube or slow them down. But yeah, I wanted to get this in a shorter amount of time, but there's so much more information on sleep than that. That's what's fascinating to me. Let's talk melatonin a little bit. I will admit it's one of my pet peeves. And I have to be kinder about it. But part of it is I was having parents bring their children in, and the children were looking with psychotic symptoms. They were seeing things that weren't there, really some scary things. I learned that they were on 10 milligrams of melatonin. So I said to the parents, well, why? And in my not so friendly way, I kind of said, well, are they deficient in melatonin? Like melatonin is a hormone. So the only people that, in my opinion, should be taking it are those that are deficient in it. So have you been tested to see if you have a deficiency? People get kind of like, well, the doctor said it's fine. Of course, it's strange. Doctors are usually not into supplements, but they still feel totally comfortable with melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that you would secrete if you have darkness. And you have plenty until about 40 years old, and then it begins to wane, and maybe it's supposed to wane. I'm not sure. Some things we're not supposed to fiddle with, but a long time ago, when I was researching it a bit, it seems like the night, the only really use that seems logical is for people who suffer jet lag, and that they could take it to try to trigger their system to try to get back into a rhythm. But as far as making you stay asleep, I don't know about that. And what was the side effect? Daymares. Exactly what we were seeing. People were kind of in a dreamy sleep like state while awake and dreaming while they're awake, and call that hallucination. It's kind of very interesting. As soon as they got their son or daughter off of the melatonin, the kid got better. So, yeah, it's really bizarre. So I tried taking 1 milligram and I did sleep better. I have family members that love it, by the way. So this isn't meant to be, Eric's way, but it's just my experience to ask yourself, maybe we're better off with herbs. The same mentality is, well, I'd like to have more muscles and lose weight and have more energy. I think I'll go take some testosterone. Well, people would say, well, are you deficient in it? I don't know, but it helps me lose weight, and it helps me have muscles, and it helps me have that get up and go. See, that's the same mentality. That's why I'm really I'm not anti-melatonin, but it's just sold in stores. Doctors say, sure, take it. It seems to be a good thing. And I think we have to ask ourselves why. But if you're out there and you find that you really are deficient in it, is it a good step in the right direction? Yes. Have I had people use it faithfully because you're so afraid if I don't take the melatonin, they won't sleep? And it's like, well, they experiment with coming off it, and sure enough, they end up sleeping just fine. So the other thing is, we're very suggestible people. All you have to do is be a little bit afraid of not sleeping, and then you start to get into the cycle of that. We have John who shares, what about tryptophan? Good question. Very good question. It's this time of year. So tryptophan L-tryptophan is one of the 22 essential amino acids. And if I understand my amino acids right, there's 5 major ones. And I think that they're used in combination with each other to manufacture all the smaller ones. L-tryptophan is the precursor to 5-hydroxytryptophan, 5-HTP. Okay. 5-hydroxytryptophan, which then that leads to serotonin, which then leads to melatonin. Okay. So L-tryptophan is found in I looked over there because pumpkin seeds, certain nuts, but the biggest thing is turkey. Turkey has lots of tryptophan in it, and that's what makes us sleepy afterwards. Okay. In pill form, L-tryptophan is tiny, and so you would take it on an empty stomach at night. And could it help you sleep? It can. it's been associated with people that have obsessional thinking or the worrying and worrying and worrying. I'd say in my practice, anywhere from 40 to 60% of the people that run and take it find that they have a reduction of obsessional thinking. Is this an appropriate thing to do? Well, here's the thought on that is it's something your body needs. L-tryptophan is something you could be deficient in. Yeah, so and you could go do tests. The tests are tricky because I've seen clients spend a lot of money on tests on the amino acids and their urine tests, and it's confusing because some say they're really not that accurate. Others say, oh, they're accurate enough. And I've done one myself. The reality is I can tell if I need a little bit of L-tryptophan. And I first try to get it in food, but I've taken it at night and had really good results. They say if you take it on an empty stomach with a little bit of carbohydrate, it might cross the blood-brain barrier a little bit better. So here's the thing about L-tryptophan. Here's the dark side of the story. It was very popular in the 70s. People were using it. In fact, it was so popular that a Japanese company that was manufactured it and skipped. I don't know what happened exactly, but the result was a batch got contaminated with something bad. I think it was a bacteria, and a number of people died. Yeah, from not L-tryptophan, but from the batch. And so it was taken off the market. And the story goes, it was taken off the market the very day that Prozac went on the market. Go figure. And then it was banned in America for many, many, many years. So what was a person to do? Well, they did 5-HTP, which was not banned. And that comes from the Graphonia seed. And I've used that as well. And it does different things slightly. Like for me, if I take L-tryptophan, when I wake up, I feel kind of more drowsy and wake up slower. 5-HTP, I wake up and I wake up a little bit adrenalized. So I don't always know how the reality is I don't take it that much. On those two notes, people that are really craving lots of carbohydrates, which is serotonin deficiency, it can be that obsessionality, they find that if they take L-tryptophan or 5-HTP, one or the other, they lose those cravings for overeating. And there are books written on this suggesting that really we should look at something called serotonin deficiency. And the symptoms are insomnia, overthinking, craving carbohydrates. Because see, serotonin is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's teaching it's those nerve networks are slowing down. Dopamine and norepinephrine are excitatory. They help us speed up. So anyway, I went off on a tangent, but is it totally related to sleep? It is. In fact, I might take some just for kicks, just to see if I need it or not. But what I like about L-tryptophan or 5-HTP is that if you skip it one night, it's not the end of the world. With antidepressants, if you skip it, it can throw you off because it's like a food grade product. Okay. I always believe when it comes, and I'm not a doctor practicing medicine here, so check out things with your own doctor and ask before taking any of this. But when it comes to dosages, I'll tell you what I've done personally is that 50 to 100 milligrams is what 5-HTP comes in. And 500 to 1,000 is the capsules for L-tryptophan. So you can see that one's more potent than the other, but it's the same kind of thing. I believe in starting with the low dose is a really good idea. Just see, and if you need more, then you take more. Here's my disclaimer also is no one seems to ever recommend taking these things. If you're taking an antidepressant, I wouldn't take supplements because doctors aren't able to decipher if you were to take an antidepressant, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which is blocking the reabsorption of these things, and then you take something that promotes more serotonin, could you get something called serotonin? What is it called? Oh, well, I think it's just called serotonin syndrome. It's too much serotonin, which is serious somewhat. I've never seen it, but you get a real flushed red face. I've had that old phrase, serotonin deficiency syndrome, that someone, but too much serotonin. It's a syndrome, and you won't get that if you play it safe. As I've worked with people, and I discovered that people that took normal amounts of like a smoothie drink where it had all these amino acids in it, almost all of them, and I don't know if it was the exercise or the eating a real healthy smoothie shake, but they all just got in a good mood. And it really made me think they were probably getting enough protein. You know, protein is pretty important, but I'm not promoting a high protein diet, but it's just pretty important when it comes to mood. And a study in the 70s discovered that alcoholics did well if they had protein every meal. It just seems to have helped them with sobriety. So it makes sense. If you're anxious, you may be running towards pasta or something to calm you down, and a little bit of that might help. But you might actually feel better if you ask yourself, do you have enough, building blocks, protein building blocks? So good questions here. I appreciate the interactions. So to recap, I would say that sleep, if you struggle with sleep it'd be like changing the direction of a cruise ship. It takes time. Be patient with yourself. You can do 4 or 5 of these things all at once. That doesn't seem to hurt anything. Yeah, we got blackening shades. We love it. The only problem is I sleep so well. I really have a hard time figuring out when it's morning. But it saves on heat. Oh, one other thing, which is really important. Your body core temperature will go down 1 whole degree when you sleep. So I just had a gentleman I knew who was sleeping with a blanket that was heated. Horrible sleep, like 10, a lot of waking. Got rid of the blanket. He now sleeps fine. Yeah. So better to be a little bit too cold than too warm. Quiet, peaceful. Get your brain, calm down before going to sleep. And if you make it into an art, like you just keep on practicing in a gentle way without overthinking about it. Boy, I just realized I made a relaxation exercise for someone and I didn't get it to them. So I'm going to have to send that after this video. Yeah, that's the other thing is I've made relaxation exercises and it helps get that body getting used to sleeping slower or slowing everything down. And it's kind of a meditative relaxation exercise. Maybe I should make one, a general one, and post it. So, well, you guys take care. I wish you well. Stay safe in that world. And you guys have a great, peaceful sleep. Take care.